And it's
when you're
like
on that
it's
fine
basically
line of,
as
like, you know,
fun
things are
as I have
difficult,
like
an
an Exodia build
too easy to know if you've
to
tilted one way or
assemble,
the other. So
you know, where I'm
you know,
like
finding what
I'm working on
everyone
some
agrees
like
should be the common
30
corrected
plus
difficulty
mirror
is something that
build
I
or
will
something.
obviously be paying
But then
very,
once
very,
I have
very
all the
close attention
pieces and
to.
I'm like,
Pretty hard
finally I
thing
can
to
play the
nail down
game.
when you are
I do
making the
like
game.
10 maps and I'm like, well, that was fun. Time
And
to log
so
out.
we've seen
And
that
that's
a lot
like
where
how
you folks have
every
been
standard
pretty
or
willing
how
to
every
change and then rechange and rechange
trade
again.
league goes
Some
for
of
me
the cool
now.
features like flasks and the waypointing system and portals, and
So,
keeping that kind of mindset going into the beta.
That's what happened to me in
Of course.
Affliction.
I mean, look, we're always willing to
and I've
change
been
stuff
on
like that Flask
cooldown
thing.
since.
Like the most recent change to that was like ultra recent.
Yeah.
Like
I did
don't-
play
have
a
we
bit of
even had, like,
Necropolis.
a closed
It was
beta of that yet? Was it- no,
No.
I think we haven't. Yeah.
I think
But
But
I mean, I think it's
I
way
got
better than
bored
it
of
was. Like it's
Necropolis
things have
crafting.
improved
I
a
didn't
lot.
finish
and honestly,
my
like that's one of
Exodia
those
build
things
that
we wanted
league.
to do something to sort out flasks for ages.
Yep.
And it really came about because when actually looking at what new players were having trouble with when they were playing, Flask Piano was actually like, even from the very beginning of the game, actually ended up being one of those things that like people just had trouble with, just like just the manual
I
dexterity
think
required.
this is
to,
a
like,
fake
hit all your different
problem.
Flask keys, and then
I could
like,
be
know,
wrong,
like, oh, you have to know when one of your flasks has run out, so you can move to the next one, and like various
I
things like that.
think
Like all that stuff actually was
people
like just a
complain
weirdly large amount of
about
mechanical
Flask
complexity right
Piano
from the very beginning.
just
and
to
then
complain
even
about
at
it.
in-game,
I
think it was
don't.
really
I'm
that
not
satisfying
convinced
either,
that
because you
people
ended up
like
with, like,
actually
you know, just,
hate
like, having to
Flask
press all these
Piano
buttons all the time.
because
and obviously
here's
it's all utility flasks that people are using it in game.
here's my take. Here's my take. Flask Piano is part of the game. Just like playing any game, there's like a sequence of buttons you have to press to win the game or to do well in it, right? And like maintaining your flasks is as much gameplay to me as clicking on a monster and killing them. Is that a cooked take? Is that stupid to think that? Like when people bitch about Flask Piano, it's like if somebody complained about like having to do the rotation in WoW to me. It's like exactly the same thing. There's just not like this feedback of I'm dealing damage when I press those buttons. So like I don't really get the Flask Piano thing. And when people say, oh, my fingers, is it stupid? Like, do I just have strong fingers or something? Like I don't get it. I actually don't get it. Where people are like, I got carpal tunnel from playing this. I feel like I can't grasp the complaint to the point where like I think people are like almost lying, or they're being like disingenuous about how much they don't like it. It's I don't know, it's weird to me. It's never been like that much of an issue to me. I think flasks suck when you're starting out and you've got like unrolled flasks and your kill speed's slow, but like once you're like going fast and like you press your flasks like once in a while, like I don't know, man, big deal. Like I just whatever. It's the other thing, like in the same vein, is when people say they don't like clicking on loot. And like there's definitely I 100% agree that there's a point where there's too much loot. You're spending too much time clicking. But the people who say, "Oh, I want all the loot to like vacuum," or like I want to walk over the loot and it gets picked up, I don't really care. Like if it was that way, that'd be fine. But I don't care for that to happen, because like what is the difference from like clicking on loot and like clicking on people's heads in an FPS, right? Like if you don't consider picking the loot up and like clicking on the tile as part of the gameplay, then I just don't really know what to tell you, because it is part of the gameplay. Like you might not think it is because it's not part of combat, right? But like picking up the loot is as important as clicking on the monster. It's a skill-based part of the game. But like picking up the loot quickly is the highest skill ceiling part of PoE, and I don't think people like realize that. And like I said, there's definitely such thing as too much loot. But like to completely write off clicking on items as not being gameplay, I think is like completely like you're missing the point. Like most of the gameplay of an ARPG is clicking on loot.
And then we kind of tried to band-aid this in PoE 1 with the, some of the Flask automation.
Like, my ideal RPG gameplay is to drive my lawnmower of a character over the monsters and then click on items.
There's that trade-off there. So
that's the end game. That is the goal of every ARPG character, is to not have to even interact with the monsters and shift all of that interaction time into the loot.
That stuff will be automated. You no longer have to do that crazy Flask.
So when I hear people say, "Oh,
best every character," and I think that is definitely
make everything vacuum, I'm just like,
and the other thing as well.
Okay, but what's the replacement for that gameplay?
More meaningful, I think, on the Flasks, because when you've got 5 slots, then the individual mods and the individual stuff seems to tend to.
I don't know. Nobody really seems to get that, and it's hard to articulate when I'm in people's Twitch chats. I spend a lot of time in Tuna's chat because he's streaming when I wake up usually.
Do I want instant or do I want way more?
And
life, that kind of
I can't really succinctly make that point without seeming like a lunatic paragraph poster in a chat.
On the topic,
it just feels like it's something that
locked in effectively. The fact that
isn't really paid attention to is that if you remove picking up loot, you need to add more combat gameplay, which is fine if you want to do that. But in PoE 1, I think it would be like a disaster if all loot got vacuumed.
But I think it kind of has to work that way because
it would not be a good game if you didn't have to ever pick up loot.
Changing that around.
And yeah, it is a filter strictness problem.
Starts to break with regard to
for sure.
The feeling of I know where mana is, I know where health is, that kind of stuff. That being said, we've always got uniques and stuff.
The time I feel like
already,
there is a unique.
There is a unique. The most I'm in the zone.
Choice that you're making, so it's
mentally in PoE 1, is when I'm blowing things up
So it does sound like
a whole screen at a time, and I'm pathing the most efficient route between the loot tiles that I need to pick up, right? I go bing bang boom, I'm oh man, should I go bing bang boom or boom bang bing? That mental game of how am I going to optimize my pathfinding to get everything? And
I think that Leech
you flex your FPS skills or whatever you want to call them to pick things up and not dwell overly long. That's the most rewarding gameplay to me.
Is what stats should
is just going fast and picking all this shit up.
There's so many arguments about that.
I feel like that one's never come to the fore.
Makes me a little bit when people
giving accuracy, but no one has a better idea than what
suggest that ARPGs are a high skill game.
I bet they'll be saying, give this or this, whatever. But
ARPGs are gamer retirement home.
Endless arguments about that topic. It's
and then the one thing that you need to demonstrate
speed would be good,
dexterous acuity
with something like dex. You
is just thrown under the bus. It's I don't know.
We'll just have it out again. We'll just have it out again.
I'm back.
It's already going to be
amongst the living.
Sometimes you're just you start the day and you're all right, here are the problems we need to solve, and then you're
what
but
about
then accuracy on dex.
Dude, I want to play SSF. I haven't played SSF since the the Tier 17
exactly.
introduction.
That is literally how it comes back to accuracy every time.
Tier 17 seemed kind of cringe to me, and I I think I'd enjoy them in an SSF.
We can't forget our roots with Path of
Exile.
I
really want to play SSF.
For the PoE 1 enjoyers.
I kind of wish
what is the plan for PoE 1 during the course of this beta? Is there going to be leagues launching? Is it on the back burner?
Yeah, there absolutely be leagues launching. Now I don't know the exact date, but the plan is kind of late February. Yep. But I mean, look, it's. I
think you can kind of ignore them in trade though, right? Well, not really, because it seems like the Tier 16 strategies suck.
Which is kind of been a bit unfortunate. I really wish we didn't have to.
I think they really,
as I said, we kind of underestimated some of the
stuff.
I think
they really messed up with Tier 17.
Everyone is going to be going back to PoE 1 again, for the February league.
Waiting for some
we're going to make sure that we
big rollback on them.
One of the things that was a big problem for our studio when we had a long-term project.
I think the major thing I want is I don't think they should have
you've always had that thing of
those currency scarab
so now that we've got
multiplayer mods. I don't think shifting.
It's going to be a bit easier to prioritize in some respects because
it's
it's all that stuff has been
currency grinding to Tier 17s was a very good idea.
We'll see how it goes, but
I think it's
expansion out next.
Yeah, obviously
Not
you
good.
know,
No good.
I just want to always make it clear that, you know, the reason why things can't be so planned out is,
It's a
again, we're
preference
just
thing.
releasing this
I don't know
game.
that it's like
Obviously, we
objectively
pivoted to
wrong.
Endgame,
I just
and
think
then
it
that needed more
raised the build
resources, and then, of
floor
course, combined with the fact
unintentionally.
that, you know, things obviously change. There are unpredictable things in the environment. We
Yeah,
can't
there's no reason
necessarily
to be in a tier
guarantee, and then,
16
of course, you
other than
have,
to farm tier 17.
you
I mean,
know, Christmas
like,
coming
that's
up
kind
and
of
all
fine,
of that, right?
I
There's
guess.
so many variables
Like,
to consider, but we
you
also
just
don't
want to
know
be a
how much
humble
time is
tier
going to be
17
invested
farmer,
necessarily or
but,
need
like,
to be invested into live
it's a real
operations
shame
for
that
post-release.
anything other
How
than
many
that,
problems are going to go wrong? How
you're
many
kind of just
builds are
stupid
how
for doing
many
the
of
16,
the uniques are
right?
broken? How many, you know, and where do all these resources go? There are like
And
there's
so
millions of
I
variables
don't
here
like
to
that.
consider, and
It's,
so like it can get very, very difficult, especially at this time.
it's just my preference.
But
I'm
once
sure
you
some people
release,
do like
you
it.
have
It seems like most people
a bit of a
don't.
grace period,
Like,
so to speak.
tier
where
17s are
more like a period
generally
of extreme
kind of
amounts of fire,
poorly received.
where we're putting out fires
yeah, it's
everywhere.
grace.
But
At
we have
least the
we have
people
a
I
period
talk to
where
and
we're
watch
fixing everything, you get
maybe
everything
isn't
stable,
true
and then
totally,
we're going to be
but
like, all right, let's recalibrate, figure everything out.
it just sucks that
and
there are
what
only
is
like
our
4
plans, and
maps in
then
the game,
establish all of that.
and like the
Based
build
also on the
threshold for
feedback
those
we
4
get
maps
from
is
that,
like,
you know, period where everything's on fire.
in my opinion, harder than it should
Not
be.
to make it sound like it's going to be bad, but that is the
Yeah,
inevitability.
that's-
Is that there's always problems. and
Hopefully, it appears good from a player
I mean-
perspective, but there's always going to be like, oh my god,
Yeah,
people
we're
found
gonna-
this, and
It
yeah,
wasn't
like, yeah.
Affliction,
Yeah,
right? No, it was
still,
Necropolis.
yeah.
In Necropolis, I just
Ideally,
rolled
the best
17s
type
and
thing is
sold
when we're
them.
able to fix some kind of
There was
exploit
like
before
a couple
people even hear
days
about
where
it.
that's
Yeah,
all
when
I
say
did was I
exploit, I'm talking about some
spam
broken
rolled
thing. Like,
17s.
if we like, so we're
Because
obviously
they was
normally
more
have to
profitable
worry
than
about, like,
running
the whole mid-league
17s
nerf
because
concept.
people were
But it's like
paying
if you can
like,
deal with something
fub
within
gun
like an
rates
hour or two of
for
it happening, then it's like
17s.
you're kind of okay because
and it was like it was just better than Sextant rolling
everyone would swap their
so just
build over to it or
chaos
whatever.
spam 17s and sell them on
yeah, we're gonna have to be
TFT to
really
people
on the
for
ball
like
PoE2
multiple
just because
divs
there's so many
each.
things that are new.
well, I mean, look, we have several bosses with several elevators.
I don't know. It's
How many of them can be pushed up the
especially
elevator?
coming
You know
off of
what I mean?
Affliction,
Well,
which
that's
is
what I
like
mean. When
I'll
I say
try
a
it out.
fire, I'm talking about
I
bosses
think
getting
Affliction
pushed
is
up
like
elevators. Like, there's
undeniably
not-
a top 3
Yeah, I am
league,
liking
maybe
my
that's okay.
mercenary flashbang
and for me
knockback is
might even
very
be
fun.
like a top 1.
Yeah, you need to look
But
into
like
that, by the way.
tier 17's coming off of
Yeah.
Affliction was like,
Like, you're gonna
oof,
nerf my
this
build.
sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
This is from
But
he's finding
They've been
fires
on for a
already.
while now, and they still kind
No,
of
these are
suck.
the fun things. Discovering that stuff can be very fun for the players. It's just internally.
I
it's
just-
like, oh, no,
I think it's
what are we
cool that
doing?
17s
It can get a little bit
exist.
panicky after
I think
release,
they
you know,
should
and
exist.
you know, there's
I
lots
think
of
they
things going
are-
on. You're like, oh, geez, what do I solve first? But
I think
obviously,
the
you know,
intent
it's the same as PoE1.
there
We're good at it at
was
this
for them
point.
to be a
Got some
you know,
experience.
yeah.
under your belts.
you know, as a
You,
stepping stone
I'm
into
gonna be torturing us
Ubers,
with, like,
and as
releasing
a
beta stuff
more
at the same time as
grindable path to
PoE2
Ubers,
league launch-
I think was
PoE1
a
league
very
launches,
The plan is
valid
to keep them
change
separated a bit
Thank
from
you.
each other, so
and a
that,
change
you know, you
that
get a
should have
chance to
make
happened.
me
both.
I just
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
understand the part where
So,
they also became
we
the
saw
most
a cinematic.
lucrative, like
To put it lightly,
monolithic
that was quite
map
epic,
farming
and,
strat.
and
I
has been cooking
just-
for quite some time.
That's
And
the part
that was
I
pretty
have,
exciting. But we've
an
also
issue
seen
with.
just a lot of story stuff happening on a much
Yeah,
higher
I also
level
don't like the scared
than
work.
previously now. So
Yeah,
stepping up
so-
your storytelling game here a bit.
Yeah, so we're really
There's
wanting to
too
make sure
many
that
of
the
them.
storytelling in PoE2 is much better than what it
I
was.
don't know.
in
I didn't
PoE1.
like Sextants either, but
like, you know, there's a lot
I
more
like
kind of
new scarabs less than I
guess,
like old
like the
scarabs.
kind of like stuff with the like the introductions to boss fights and the outros and things like that. Like all that stuff.
I don't like that
just
there
got
are
a lot
these
more
weird, like,
storytelling going in, all
gimmicky
those
strats. I don't
things.
like that.
We do have the intro cutscene.
Some of the
There's
scarabs
also,
are, like,
kind of
so
light,
rare. I don't
between
like
the
that.
acts, there's these kind of like more kind of
You're doing a
motion graphic
strat,
type,
and then you
cutscenes to
log
kind of
in,
establish
and
things.
suddenly
there
that
might be some
strat
more
is like
surprises later on in the game as well. Not in
5
early
times more
access,
expensive and is no
unfortunately. Later on
longer
that,
have good
that
profit
we'll
margins
talk about
because
VC as well. But ultimately, we just want to make sure
Snubay
that,
or
I
somebody
think a lot of
decided
people
that
who got through
they're
the
gonna
PoE1
like
story
stream doing
had
that
no
strat.
idea
It's
what was
like
happening by the end.
way
And so
too
effectively
subject
we want
to
make sure
market
that that's not the case
manipulation,
this time around, that people really
which is like
are able
a
to
stupid
absorb things. But
concern that it
one thing I will
exists.
say though is that
but
it's ultra important to
it's
us that
so
we don't break
annoying to me
the
when I log
feeling
in
that, like, when you're
and
playing a
like
second
you can't.
time,
You have to
that
pivot
it, like,
away
that it
from a
feels-
strat
we don't want it to feel annoying
because
the second
Yeah,
time.
we were talking
it's
about this
like
morning.
the new
Yeah,
Reddit
yeah.
Don't take
strat,
control
right?
out of the player's
Like,
Exactly.
that
So
shit
yeah, I'm
sucks.
personally a believer of the fact that if you just change, when you change the camera position for a cutscene, immediately
Yeah,
it feels way
that's
more
so dumb.
annoying. Like, because there's this whole thing of like if you click on an NPC and like the camera changes position, like sure, when you're playing through the campaign the first time, that kind of thing is like,
and
you know,
that-
like that can be cool.
That happened
But,
with like
then
scarabs and sextants
if
too.
you're,
But for the most part, you were
like playing
farming.
through the, you know, second, third, fourth, fifth time.
Sextants
you want to
is
go
like
to the
just
NPC and
a-
click, and just
I wanna put as many
and without it feeling
monsters in the map as I
you
fucking
have to
can,
sort of worry about
right?
anything. So yeah, like effectively, we want to make sure that it's still.
You're the one who made
that
it?
that we still
Oh,
have that. You know,
shit.
because
That's
ultimately, you know, we're a
badass.
game you
You're
expect
fucking
people to
Twitch
play through many
legend.
times. So ideally, we can kind of deliver both
it
the
just,
situation where the
I
first
mean,
time you play through it, it feels like an
I
amazing
don't know.
story.
There's always
taking
like,
seriously, that you're
and you can always
understanding,
pivot to like a
you know,
different
just, like, all
strat
those sort of touch
too,
points and,
right? But
you know,
like
little you know,
when
things just
Sextants existed,
fall through,
pivoting was
while
like
also maintaining the fact that if you know what you're doing, it's
a
like you don't have
lot
to go
easier.
talk to some
You
quest
just
giver
used
to
like
get a
the
quest. Like,
next
you can just
best
go do the
sextant
thing,
that added
you know,
like
without
the
having to
next
talk to someone
highest
about
amount of
first.
monsters. You know,
So you know, that kind of
it's
stuff is
not
really
like
important, just to make the, you know, that
like giant exiles or something where it's like a totally different. Like they're so specific now that
knowledge is allowed. And
yes,
encouraged.
absolutely. So
You're
yeah,
allowed
you have to completely change your
there's what the
strat.
character knows and
It's
there's what the player knows, and in
I
our
don't know,
game,
they're
what the
too
player knows
specific. There are
is
too
needs to be
many of
sufficient
them, which
as
makes
far
it
as,
like
being able to progress
impossible
the
to
storyline.
self-farm.
You're
The
not,
thing
you
with
don't want to have it so you
Sextants
just talk
is
to an
like,
NPC just to find out something you
if
already
you were
knew
willing to
as a
roll them
player.
yourself,
Yeah,
which
like,
was
you
like
know
a
if you
currency
kill this
loss
boss,
per
you get an
time
exterior waypoint,
in
so
Trade
you just,
League
like,
if
kill
you
it,
were
log in, log
fast.
in,
Yeah,
wait,
yeah,
But like in self-found,
Meta
you could
knowledge.
sustain like any
yeah.
sextant strat you wanted
So
just
you
by
explained to me
rolling
the
them
other day
yourself.
the,
The ones you got that
kind of
dropped,
the
right? Yeah,
context
you
for
got to
the
go in
beast
all
and
on
how
one
that leads into
neck.
the cutscene in
It's
the
like
beginning
I've
of,
just like seen a
PoE2
wider
from
variety of
PoE1,
things.
and that I think helped put it
That's
in
it.
a lot more
At the end of the day,
perspective for me and
that's
made me
the
appreciate
most
and understand
like
what's going on in the
Yeah,
story
so
again.
effectively what you're
coherent
seeing in the
point I
opening
think you can
cutscene
make
is
about the
effectively
scares now is
a new,
I like doing
a
more
new
stuff.
seed of a beast,
It's like it's
that,
almost
is going to be,
always
is
like
growing. Now,
yeah,
in
top
PoE1,
hat,
you know,
and
the
then
beast,
the
beast
four
was
best
killed,
scarabs for one
and then what
individual
happened in
mech.
response to that is a bunch
Sometimes
of
there's
all
like
the
an
gods in the
oddball
world
one
were
in
able
there
to,
because it like interacts weird,
you know, were able
but
to effectively rise again, and you killed a bunch of
they
them,
just
but there are more, you know, in the world, and effectively, you know, we don't want to spoil too much about the storyline overall, but effectively, obviously, someone here, you know, the Count is wanting to harness the power of the beast once again, and then we have the mysterious figure
beast?
there who is saying, you know, no, don't do this. This always turns out badly.
There
you
was
know.
a comment in chat that I loved that was like, "Stop opening Eldritch boxes."
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Why do
It's
people keep doing this?
without significant changes.
Yeah, if someone
I
handed you a
don't
mysterious orb,
curiosity
wouldn't you press the
think-
button?
I mean,
There's a puzzle box.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'll be
I
playing
want
PoE1
it.
too much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just I think
I mean, I'm gonna try, but
they need a fairly
who knows
like
how many hours it's gonna take me.
significant change.
Indeed.
I mean, that's not like a forever
So,
thing, but like as
we
long
had
as
a fun
PoE2
moment
exists, I'll be
earlier
just
where
putting
you
time
were
into
watching it and
PoE2.
you're
Right?
like, oh, we really need to rename that passive because he's a Karui.
Unless
And
PoE2 is like really
it's a
bad
wolf-
for some reason,
Great
but
Wolf's Howl.
new
Great
stuff's
Wolf's Howl
always
obviously
fun.
being an
Even if
went
it's
out
like
there.
not
These are my
good,
history.
even if it needs
Stop
work,
telling
it's
him.
fun to learn new
Stomped out of
things.
the room.
I don't think
I was
there are
like, we
new
need to
things to
rename
learn
that
in
notable. He's
PoE1.
Karui. And then I was
are
kindly
fun to
reminded
learn.
that actually he was
An orphan who,
an
yeah.
orphan and was
Yeah,
adopted
well,
by
it's
a
changes by
Izomite and raised.
omission and reversion.
So yes,
You
there is a
know,
mixture of Karui and Izomite background.
I can see
and I was
those.
like,
it works. You
oh,
were
happening.
fair
wrong.
enough. I walked
Maybe,
back in
probably
here
not,
all
but
sad
maybe.
and yeah, whatever. My bad. It's fine. The name
He
is
looked so
good.
Well,
chastised
we'll
when he
see.
came back in. But that just like points to the fact that I feel like you're doing a lot more with the characters here.
For
You
sure.
even mentioned that ascendancy stuff is going to have an
Yeah,
impact
yeah.
story-wise.
So, like with
That's wild.
We just think a lot about this kind of stuff. So the acolyte of, and I always get this name wrong. The acolyte of is it Chalula? Chayula. I always say this wrong.
not say
So
Chayula.
the acolyte of
What the
Chayula, for example.
I think,
so that we have this sort of storyline with the origins of the monks, where there's like an order of monks.
So I've
who,
never played
worship a,
the early
thing they
access
call
or the beta
Dreamer.
in like any
And, the
capacity.
Dreamer is actually
And I really haven't even
Chayula.
watched people
So,
play it.
and they don't know this. So they're
So-
effectively worshipping a breach demon. So the acolyte of Chayula is effectively you embracing
only
the fact
seen,
that I'm worshipping a breach demon. I'm just going to go all the way.
like
Just
the
and,
clips that
I'm in too
GG
deep.
posts,
Yeah,
which are like kind of like
we're just gonna do it.
baity, like
So, yeah, there's a lot
they're
of
never
thinking like that
playing
goes
like
into these things, like,
very
what is the
well or
history of
very
these,
fast, right?
like,
So like
I think a lot of that
it's
stuff
pretty hard to
inspires,
gauge how
interesting mechanics
fast
as well.
you
So, for
can
example,
or should
on that
go
one, you've got that into the breach
in PoE2
skill,
on, like, a good
You're
build.
always in a breach all the time. You can see the like things. Going
Yeah, I
on,
mean,
like,
they're-
that stuff
they're-
is- I
they're
think that
showing
there's
off
a lot of
to-
cool inspiration there. So coming up with that storyline stuff.
not us,
for
right?
this episode, I
they're
think
showing
is-
it off to
There's a
people
couple
they
of
want
little-
interest in the
little things
game
that I
and
think
like
scores well, and hopefully people will
you
notice and pay
can't
attention to. So
make it too fast.
there's one of the bosses that was
there's a whole
shown
thing, and I
as,
like see through that. And
uses a lot of
I don't think I'm
time
like
on
particularly
chronomancy.
biased
And,
by it.
Interestingly, if you are a sorceress and you ascend to Chronomancer and you then
But I
go
am
to
curious
fight
what
that
like
boss,
the
if
peak
you,
of
for example,
speed
try to
is
use
will be
time
in
freeze,
PoE2.
The
lot of
boss
death
is like,
effects?
yeah,
Maybe.
that doesn't work on me.
It seems like
There's a
everything's
dialogue
really
line,
slow,
if
and you
cast
get
temporal
like
chains
you have a
on them,
lot of
he's
ways
like,
to dodge things,
you know,
though.
just puts it back on
And,
you,
like,
and it's like, yeah, and so
in
there's interesting things like
the
that, and
press
it doesn't
clips
like
that they
change
show,
things
they
on a
like
grand
intentionally
scale,
don't
right? It
get
doesn't
hit
make
by
a certain
things. Like
class
there's
not
so many like
viable or
times they
anything
just
like
die
that,
to a
but
boss,
there's
like
this interesting
the boss like
little
raises its
quirky
hand
hooks
up and it's like,
everywhere.
I'm gonna crush
Different
you, and
bosses
then
have
they
different
just get
intro
crushed
lines
instead of
depending on what
moving. It's
class you're
like,
playing. They
so
have different
I
skill
think
lines
what
sometimes
I'm
depending on what
more
class
interested
you're
in
playing.
finding out for
Different
myself is
dialogue
like
through the
how
campaigns, different
difficult
classes, like
these
the,
bosses are
sorceress
for like
comes obviously from the Maraketh when she goes
just
back
a
to the
normal
Maraketh, there's kind of a
build,
little backstory
right?
there about
Like
how she was banished originally.
because it seems like
So,
they're
you know,
pushing
she
a
needs to
lot
find a
more
way to
into
kind of
like
she needs to be accepted back
telegraphed
into their culture
fights
again.
where
You know, like we've got things
you
like
can
you know, the character
and
we talked about
should
earlier,
presumably
so the
avoid a lot
warrior,
of the
you know, was
damage.
often,
So
you know,
it makes me wonder how like
he was brought up by
defenses
actually one of
play
the
into the
NPCs
game.
in Act 1
You know,
town. So
like
obviously there's a whole different dialogue there because he's
will
effectively
the
his
meta
adopted
be
son,
that
you know, we've got things like
a
that.
good player
There's a lot of
should
thought that's gone into, you know,
have
just trying to make
like
it feel like all these character
a
classes
very
have
glass
some
cannony
level of
build? Like in
involvement with
the
world,
current
you know,
PoE
that just
1
come
meta,
into existence for the
defense is king.
There's,
Unless you're like an
other
uber
little things,
boss
so, like,
farmer
more
or
on
a
the narrative
sanctum
side,
runner,
obviously we saw the world
where
map. You
the
have
goal
icons
is
that
to
show
deal
different
a
things that are
billion
in
damage
each
in
act,
1
like
second.
things you want to explore
Like
or find and
the
awesome.
entire like
But each of them
PoE
also has a little
zeitgeist
bit of a
currently
kind of
is like
a little bit of text on them as well. And
you
like,
would
for
rather be an
example,
immortal
the,
character than a
there's
character
one
that
in
can
one of the first
instantly
areas of the
kill
game that's
everything
just like a
unless you're
camp
doing
of
bosses.
Iron
That's
Count
just
guards.
where the game
And,
is right now,
you know,
right?
we showed it in a trailer when the Ranger
And
class trailer we did.
most of that's because there's a
you know,
lot
whenever
of
it was.
damage
You
in
saw
PoE
the
1 that you
Ranger shoot
cannot
some of them, kill
avoid.
some of them because they
That
were
just
trying
no
to, like,
matter
hurt
what you
a
do,
child,
you will
know,
get
and the
hit
child was just trying to get
eventually
some
and you
food.
will die.
And the Ranger just like snipes them with
And
arrows and kills them ruthlessly. And so you
I
read this
wonder
thing
if that
and
will
you're like,
hold up
you know,
in PoE
you hear
2,
whispers of an
where
Iron Count, you know,
a good player,
scouting
you know,
party
if
that was
everything's
slain by a
truly
rogue archer or
dodgeable, like is
something
there
like
really a
that. So you get these little
reason
things
to
where
build
we're
in
like connecting all the
defense?
little
You know, if
dots,
you're
and
gonna
even that you absorb a little bit of interesting little
be able to
information.
dodge everything
You've got
just
other
because
things,
you
for example,
have
when you enter
built-in
an
dodge
area,
skills to your
not
character.
only says the
I
name
don't
at the
know.
top now, it has
I mean,
almost a
there's the
subtitle text that's giving you a little
the
bit.
additional
And
factor
these
that
little
you
things,
lose
like,
the
somehow
map if
make
you
the
die,
world
right?
building feel so
like
much better. And
maybe you
when
want
you
some
approach
defenses
certain,
to like
landmark rooms and you walk into them, you'll get a
prevent,
banner
you
at the
know,
top
your
as well,
character
which
from
says
dying
what
in
it
one
is and
hit.
gives again a little
But
bit of a thing.
I think we're going to
All these
see
little
a shift
micro,
towards a
narrative
more
delivery
offensive
mechanisms,
play
like, make you
style.
feel way more
Well,
immersed
not
in the
play
world
style,
and way
a more offensive
aware of what's
character
going on
building
and way more connected to your
meta.
character, way more connected to the
And that's
bosses, to the
interesting to me.
NPCs. It's yeah, there's a lot we're doing now that we certainly never did before. We didn't even think of before.
I think the
yeah,
way they
it's-
make shields look
I like that a
on
lot.
the
'cause,
little
like, as an action RPG gamer, I don't
the trailers
really
at the
care too much
beginning,
about
the
plot,
shields look
but
fucking
I do
cool.
want a really cool world to be.
And if you can just, like,
blowing monsters
block
up in.
shit and
Basically,
then
it's like, I want characters to be
dodge.
cool, I want the baddies to be cool, and I want like the things happening around me that like build out a bit of that story without me having to stop killing stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's more of that going on as well,
yeah.
which is great.
There's
Well,
tons. There's
the baddies being cool. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's how we
watching you
almost
cook.
designed
guess
an
I'm not
ascendancy
sure
class
what you
in here just
mean
before when we were
by
watching the trailer
the people
earlier.
who think it's going to be like Dark
So,
Souls.
You were
Because-
saying a shadow. You came up with a shadow ascendancy.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know what that term
internally we had
means
some developers
anymore
watching
because people
the
think
trailer
everything is
yesterday,
Dark
getting
Souls.
excited
If something's
about it, and I was
hard,
like, I
it's
wanna
Dark
play
Souls. If
that-
something's
I wanna play that
dark,
character. I wanna
it's
be
Dark
that
Souls.
character.
Yeah.
If
That's
something
awesome, that,
requires
like,
dodging,
kind
it's
of
Dark
vile
Souls. So
thaumaturge
like, I don't
type character.
know
And so like,
Cool.
all of
what
a sudden it's like, we should make that
the
a class.
average like
And then we had
person
another guy, like,
means
suggest it should
when
be a
they say
shadow,
that.
and so now
Like,
I'm
to
like,
me,
oh, yeah, we're
when somebody
definitely-
says
come on.
like
We
Dark
have to do
Souls,
a Val thaumaturge,
Yeah.
I
shadow
think,
ascendancy, like,
okay,
that's gonna be cool. You
it's
can do
like to me
awesome
the
things now,
defining
even
trait
when
of like
I know
a
it's hard to see 'cause you hide
Souls-like
it under all the
game
armor, but you can do things like,
is
you know,
a
with our character
turn-based
classes, just due to
real-time
the
game,
upgrades and
which sounds
models,
like
where all of a sudden now
paradoxical,
the character can
but
have
like
tattoos added to them and stuff like that. It's
the
completely
most
feasible
Dark
in the
Souls thing to
future, and,
me
like,
is when
I
like
would-
a
I wanna
boss
do a lot
does an
more of that
attack
stuff, like,
that you have to
for the,
dodge, and then it gives
there's
you an
little things like
opportunity
for
to hit
the,
it back,
Warbringer, I
and then
think
you
was
have to
the
wait
class
for the
name, on
boss to
warrior.
attack again,
When
and
you
then you
take
hit it
that
back.
ancestral
There's
totem
no
node, all your totems now
onslaught
have, like,
of
an extra blue
attacks
glow to them,
from
kind of
either
like they're
side.
enhanced
It's a
by this
turn-based
ancestral
game
magic.
without
And what we also want to do is add tattoos as well
frozen
that like
time.
glow blue when you're using
And I
certain
think,
skills and all
in
that.
that
So
sense,
heaps of little
the
things
bosses
that,
in
again,
PoE
connects
2
all the
will be
culture and all that stuff together
Souls-like.
and make you feel like,
But
you know,
I
it's
don't
believable as
think
opposed to, and
they
this
will
is a
be
character
like
as opposed to this is just a
early
mechanic.
PoE 1,
Yeah, speaking
or
of
yeah, you're
sense,
fighting the
epic.
king
I know that there was a
crab for
part in
like
the trailer that was,
15
like, not
minutes.
fully
Like that
finished,
shit.
where you
Yeah,
ascend and it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, people
but
are
I know you want it to
high
be like a
if
cool
they
moment
think
where
that's what
some
it's going to be
power
like.
goes
Yeah,
through
You're
you.
going to
yeah,
die
Just hadn't finished the
quickly.
VFX yet.
Or-
even the another
or
one, the
not.
blood mage.
I don't think
when
there's going to be a
you,
lot of
like,
drawn out
you know,
combat.
play the blood mage,
It's-
now you get an additive surge on your
you and the
character.
boss
Whenever
will
you
take
cast spells,
turns
you're getting like almost
until one of you
bloodbending kind of
dies.
vibe going
Sick.
on, and like
Drawing it from their
Yeah.
veins and sending out
Yeah.
a fireball.
it's cool.
Yeah.
It's real cool.
Yeah, you can have like the tattoos get tattooed on them as they.
I'm a
as
little
they ascend
interested,
and things like
though,
that. I mean, that just makes
because
taking ascendancy way more cool. Which is it's
presumably
already, I think,
PoE2 is
almost feel
going
like
to be
ascendancy is more important than the
harder
classes for
than PoE1
players kind of
from
like
like
feeling the vibe of
a
what they
pure
wanna do with the
gameplay
character.
perspective.
Oh, for sure, because I mean the classes are pretty open. You can play
And-
whatever skills,
Yeah.
whatever weapons. Sure, you're on a
I don't really
passive
have a
tree at the
strong
start point,
opinion
but, you know,
on
by
whether
high
I think
level,
that's good or
you kinda
bad.
go wherever you want to go.
It's
Using
just a
guilds,
different game,
especially
right?
getting
I mean, I play
off-class
lots of
stuff,
different
you can
games,
kinda
so
be
I
whatever
think
you
it's
want
kind of
with
like
the base
cringe when people are
class.
like,
So eventually, yeah, the
no, a
ascendancy
game
is what
should be
becomes
like this.
more of that
It's
important
like, well,
identifying feature, because that's what
says you.
have actually
So what?
chosen that
Like,
makes
I-
you distinct.
Play a different game,
that
man.
another different class wouldn't be able to actually have. So yeah.
Yeah, so you want to make that super.
So I don't care if it's harder or
And on
easier or
that note,
whatever, but
I know I was definitely confused. I know people were definitely confused and a little worried.
it does
about
is like I
ascendancy
said,
and what's
it does
happening
seem
with
like it's
that,
going
and
to
people were,
be
like, watching
significantly
the,
like
the second
more
trial
gameplay
and being
focused
like, oh,
rather
what if
than
I
like
don't like
Yeah,
this. Oh,
sure.
is this another
build
lab
focused,
again?
POB
I want
focused.
you to
Like
lay it out
PoE1, you beat the game
like
in
simply as
POB,
possible, like, how,
and then
how do you
in
ascend?
Yeah, so
the
effectively,
crafting bench
in
or,
the
you know, on the
full game,
trade
there's gonna be
site, right?
3 ascendancy trials. for early access,
PoE2,
there's 2.
it seems
And effectively, you can use any of those
much
ascendancy trials to be able
larger
to do
shift
your
of that
ascension.
towards, you know, you beat the
Yeah, choose
boss.
which one. And
in the
effectively,
boss fight.
if you as you get to higher
And
level, like
I
higher
wonder
level
how
keys
the
for those
average
trials,
player,
that will unlock
the average
more points.
ARPG
Like,
player
you do
is
it
gonna
at
handle
certain
that.
level breakpoints. That will allow you to
Because
get more points for those classes.
my
so if you want to just
opinion
play the entire,
is
just
generally
only
that,
the,
like,
Trial of the Chaos God,
ARPGs are
with you know,
some
to get
of
all
the
points, then you can
least
just decide to do that, just play the higher
skill-based
and higher levels and
games
get more
that you
points as
can
go through.
play.
You know, if you want
Not
to
like
go mix, that's fine too.
entirely
Personally, I think
skillless,
people
but
will want
like
to try out all the different
I said
content, and
earlier,
you
but
might
like
think
ARPGs
that
are like
you,
to me
but
like
even
the
within the
retirement
trials,
home for
there's choices,
gamers,
right?
right? They're like
I know that there's always
the
contention
end
around
game of
traps,
ARPGs
but,
is to become
because
a
in the,
moving blender and then
because
pick
in
up
the,
loot. You know, the
trial
end
of
game is
Sigmas,
to
you can
not
choose which
interact
rooms you
with the
want to go to.
monsters
If you don't
anymore.
want to deal with traps, you just don't pick
It's
those
not like
rooms,
that
right?
won't be the
the
case in
you don't pick the
PoE2,
gauntlet rooms, you can just go other
but I'm
things,
assuming
do
there's
the
going to be a lot
combat
more
ones,
like
ones, and that's fine too. So
boss
effectively, it's like
combat
you always get to
that's
choose like what you're doing.
you can't
like,
do
it's
that
funny
with.
because like I know traps are so contentious, but
And
also there are other people who just enjoy that stuff. So you know, we wanna
Maybe
have
I'm being
something-
like arrogant, but I just
There's these,
don't
like,
Path of
think
Exile, divisive content,
the
but
standard
lots of choice.
ARPG
You can choose
gamer
what to do
is,
and what
like,
not to do, and then we're
gonna
embracing
respond to that
now,
well.
and
I
that's-
I mean,
think
you're clearly
they
leaning
think they
into that
will.
now. You have,
I
you have
it's
such a
kind of like
competitive
the
advantage in
Blizzard
that you
guy
have so
thing,
much
right? Like
content,
you
and
think
even
you do,
with
but you
PoE2, that's still
don't,
gonna be the
which
case. So you can
was
lean into
obviously
that,
proven to be like a really
making
stupid thing to
content that
say.
is spicy,
But I feel the
but
same way about
divisive.
like
sure.
the PoE
And
players
now
that are
you're,
like,
separating trees. And
oh
having
man, I
these
can't
things
wait
be
for the
able to
combat to be
focused on
super
them.
grueling. I want to die, and
You're
I'm
doing that
like,
with the trial with the ascendancies.
do you?
So, yeah, and
Do
you
you
can
really?
you can kind of do all of them and
Like-
drip feed yourself
Of course.
smaller
And I mean,
progression if
there-
you want.
Because
and
I
there's also
don't
stuff
think
that
you
you're
would
gonna
be
getting
playing
from those,
this
like, specific
game,
rewards
this
and everything.
genre
Yeah,
of
like, fine,
games, if that's what you
incentivized to do
actually
that.
thought.
But of course, on the other hand,
one-
if you don't
there's
want to do that
never
content,
been an
we have
ARPG
open
that's
full-on
had
trade, right? You can
so
just trade for the rewards.
grueling
And that's fine
combat.
too. So,
It just
you
doesn't
know, like, that's
exist.
always part of it.
That's like
Yes,
been a
like
good
the
game
rewards there,
that
for
like
example,
people
like
talk about.
jewels
Like
drop
what
throughout the world.
ARPG
But
has
if you
like
want to get more
Souls
jewels,
like
you go and run
combat,
Sanctum.
and people like
Now, if you
praise
want to
it
get
for
the
that.
radius
Is there
jewels,
one?
well, it's
I just it's
Trial of the
PoE2
Sycamore.
is
Just so for anyone
outside
who,
the
isn't
genre
a
at this
Path of Exile
point.
1 player, this is effectively a
It's-
sequel to Sanctum League that we did in Path of Exile
Yeah.
1.
It might
so it's
be a
mechanically very
Souls-like
similar,
game just in
but,
isometric
it's obviously,
format.
you know, Amerikith,
For all we know.
you know, like Amerikith trial
So-
now, and you know, we've changed it. A lot of things about it have changed, and all like the
It
content
says
is new, but
nothing
it is
about
effectively the
whether it
same
will be
overall
a
mechanic,
successful
you
game
know,
or
in terms
not.
of that sort
I
of
just
roguelike.
I wonder
mechanic.
if
And it's the same with
current
the other
PoE
one. You have
players
Ultimatum and PoE1 being the theme, and of
are
course
going to
now
get
it's
to
redesigned
PoE2
and it's evolved into
and
Trial
just be
of
like,
Chaos.
wow, I hate
So
this. And
a lot of people in chat would have been spamming
they
ultimatum, and for those who haven't
blame the
played, would probably be
bosses
like,
for,
"What?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't understand."
you know,
Yeah,
being
effectively,
cheap
effectively the
or
trial
something.
of Chaos,
Like, that's
of
kind of
Chaos
like
is a sequel to Ultimatum,
common line they use,
which
maybe.
is,
And we just have to get used to the new
I don't know.
names.
Am
which is
I
very
making
hard.
any sense? It's
But
just
yeah, anyway, the point being, like, of course, in Valor,
I feel like there's
in
an
the world as well, and if you want
incongruency
a
between
larger dose of
what I
Valors
think
and,
ARPG players
you don't wanna
want,
trade,
the average
feel free to run
ARPG
some
player wants,
ultimatums.
and what
Thing is, 'cause
PoE2 is
they're
going to
all
provide to them.
item-generated keys as well. It's not like you have to do it right then and there. You
We'll
can
see.
trade the keys away.
It might just be a
At
good
any
enough
point,
fucking
you
game
can
that like
also
those people
buy
get
more keys
filtered,
if you want to
and you
farm
bring
more
in
of
new
that
people
thing.
who
And if you just want to do it
are
later,
going to be
just
interested
stockpile a bunch
in
of them, run them more at
basically
your
a
leisure,
new
you know
type
what I
of
mean? It's
game
like, you have the freedom. They are itemized, tradable. As a lot in
And I'm not
Path of
taking like an
Exile tradition,
elitist stance, like,
as is
you're
everything,
gonna
right?
feel that way,
The
but I'm
only-
not gonna
only
feel
thing
that
you can't
way.
trade is gold.
Yeah.
So we're like the exact
I
opposite
just-
of most games, where it's like the gold is freely
I
tradable.
think there are a
and
lot of
items get
people who
locked. We're
play
like, the gold is the
ARPGs for a
only thing you
reason
can't trade,
that
and
is
every other item is
fundamentally
free.
different from the experience
and that's because you've made
PoE2
gold be this like way to
is
be
providing.
like, you're playing the game, so you have
There,
access to
it's more
this,
like
and
the
that's- you
the
don't wanna
Vampire
trade that.
Survivors, right? Like Vampire Survivors is just about killing
so
things.
How
And,
on
like,
the
not-
Ascendancies,
them
and the
not
trials,
really
how hard
fighting
do you
back.
foresee getting your
And I think
Ascendancy
there are
to
a
be
lot more
while
players
leveling?
that
Do you expect people to
align
fail
with
out
like
and
the
attempt these
Vampire
things multiple times,
Survivors
and what does that look like for you?
philosophy
Well,
of
I failed the
gameplay
first time. I
than
didn't-
those that
Yeah.
align with
It
the
is important
Dark
to note that that
Souls
first
philosophy
itemized key,
of gameplay, which
is
is
a quest key, and we have special rules around it that if you do
being
fail,
methodical.
you can just repeat it, right?
Yeah, you
in my
changed that
opinion.
recently because
Yes, I did.
that was something that I didn't actually realize you'd changed. I guess it was a little bit
You
too
know, I
master
was
if
trying to
didn't
look for
Yeah,
that
you weren't
if the
the only
dodge
one failing
animations
it.
differed by
Um,
either
but,
class
so pretty
or
much you get to
armor.
reattempt it, and
weapon
for
type,
something
but
like
I couldn't really
Ultimatum,
tell.
just to
It seemed like it might be
of exploits. It's like, I
linked
can just do
to
3 of the waves, then intentionally
you currently
fail and
have
then repeat
equipped
them. Well, we've thought of that.
weapon-wise,
Don't
but
worry.
I wasn't
You can't.
sure.
But yeah, the first ones are repeatable. You're not going to be like, oh, what the heck? Now I have to just play to the whims of
I do
random
wonder
generation to ascend. Like
what I haven't paid
so
enough
that's-
attention to.
It is pretty hard.
I'm not
though,
paying
like,
attention to this at all
I
right now.
definitely
either.
don't think you'll do it on the first
But
attempt.
like,
I did not
You
to
did?
brag.
You
Not
did?
to brag.
Wow.
I did. I did
I-
pass on. I was clenched.
do you know
though.
if
Yeah,
you're
okay. Yeah,
immune
especially that boss fight.
while
I was
in the
watching- I
roll
was watching
animation?
him do
You,
the boss
you
fight
came
from
by
afar.
right as I was doing the boss fight.
But you
Dude,
get
I
some,
hate
like,
rolls where
kind
you
of
aren't
powerful
immune
burns
during
there,
the
to be
animation.
perfectly honest.
And
So
like,
I
yeah,
got a
they're really
60% move
strong.
speed, but
Yeah,
that's
And
not
not
yeah,
my
probably
strategic
too
choice.
strong
I was
in
watching you
PoE
from-
if you can like
How is it so
iframe roll
fast?
through shit, but
This isn't the PoE2.
a roll that doesn't make you
What was
immune
Dodge rolls
is
going across half the arena?
basically
supposed to be slow.
worthless.
No.
Like, it's actually like
it was good fun. I quite liked it.
It's like, why
I
even have
like,
it?
Mostly like Sanctum. I don't want to do it all the time, but
Sanctum?
I did quite like the.
You guys
trial
like
something, but
Sanctum?
knowing that there's other
I like
choices, so I
Sanctum.
can do Ultimatum instead or something like that. It's fun.
100%.
So you've got these like
I don't
2
know
roguelike
why people
dungeons
don't
that
like
are going
Sanctum.
into the beta that launched.
I
but they're
know why
done
they
very
don't like
differently.
Sanctum.
One's got the honor system, which is like a separate health, but it's based on and scaled by your
What
health. Which
I
noted
I
is
think
quite
that's part
your
of
defenses
interesting.
now. It
my
can be
body of
fully
evidence for what I think.
investigated,
Like,
so
if you
fully scaled by your
like,
character,
there are
you
a
go
lot
into
of
the
reasons
tanky
to
character,
not
you'll be
like
tanky in the
Sanctum.
dungeon, which is really cool. So
But
And then with
I
Ultimate
think
Sanctum,
Sanctum
and
is
just
very
because
like
people
I
ask,
think
in
Sanctum
Ultimate
is
there
the
aren't any cracks.
most similar
So,
thing you
that's
can
the-
do
no
in
traps in
PoE
Ultimatum
1
and no honor system in Ultimatum.
to
If you
what
just
my
want more of a
expectation
pure
of what
combat
yeah,
PoE2
correct,
gameplay
experience,
is,
then that's
right?
a choice. And
Where
then
it's like
there's
it's
the third one
very.
as well, which
They will eventually.
I was gonna say
secret.
slow,
So,
but technically, if you're
once
good
that
at
4
Sanctum,
goes
you're
in,
not slow.
then we'll,
But it's like
then we'll
it's
have,
very
a third
like
trial. So,
deliberate.
people
You
sort of
you
broadly know
either
that
have to
Cruella
you have to
and
know
Act
what you're
4
doing,
association
and
power
like
with the
you can
Cruella
go in
scene.
slow, but you